Welcome into ATL Day Ones with Jarvis and Tenitra. Coming up on today's show, Zion plus Atlanta equals trouble. Will Bijan Robinson actually walk on water? And last but not least, and for the culture, I like Michael.
This is ATL Day Ones, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta. And it starts now.
I want to start off by saying thank you for making ATL Day Ones your first listen of the day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. Really appreciate that from you in advance. ATL Day Ones is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, every time, Tenitra Batiste is not sitting next to me, Aaron, I have to, kind of let everybody know that it's kind of like a tradition for me. I have to let everybody know that Tenitra will be back. You guys calm down. Aaron is just filling in for her, so you guys, I got to make sure I get it out the way. But Aaron Freeman joins us today, man. Welcome to the show, and excited to get this thing rolling today, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me here. We know that Tenitra is the real star of this show, so
Absolutely.
I'll do my best to fill in her shoes and not disappoint the listeners.
Absolutely. Yeah, speaking of superstars, how about this? The Hawks have been in trade rumors all over the doggone place, right? We talk about John Collins' name being thrown out there. He's been rumored to be on the block again. We got Clint Capella, who's been thrown around as well because of the contract situation. The Hawks are trying to figure out a way to get better and also shed salary at the same time. We're gonna see whether or not that's gonna actually play out like that. But I think one of the cool things is about this part of the season, as far as for the NBA goes, is the speculation, right? Because we know that Zion Williamson has been all over the news. So for some reasons, basketball related, and some other reasons some could say basketball related too, from a shape standpoint. So, but I think this one particular trade that I came across, I thought it was kind of interesting, and I want to kind of get your thoughts on it. So essentially, it has the Pelicans sending Jackson Hayes and Zion Williamson to the Hawks, but the Hawks sending back John Collins, who's, that makes sense. All right. And then Onyeka Okongwu and two more this year's first round pick and the 2024 first round pick from the Sacramento Kings that they got in the Kevin Huerter trade. I know based off of your faces and how I kind of threw all that stuff out there, the more I kind of say it and look at it, I don't necessarily know if I'm on board with that, but what do you think? Do you think that's too much for Zion Williamson? Or let me ask you this: would you do that?
See, this is tough because I have this football mindset, Jarvis, where my thing is like we'll talk about the draft and whatnot, and people will ask you like, "Hey, should the Falcons draft this guy?" And I'm like, "Not really. He's a little bit too much of a project." I'm the type that's like, I'll let somebody else draft him, develop them for 4 years, and then I'll sign him in free agency.
Indeed.
Basketball doesn't really work that way, but yeah. I have that kind of same mindset with Zion Williamson. He has not quite lived up to the hype. I thought the world of Zion when he came out of Duke and thought he was going to take the NBA by storm. Yeah. And he hasn't. Some of that's owed to injuries, but he's been productive when he's been healthy, but he just has not been healthy. And this just feels like a type of move for the Hawks that is more flash than substance at this point in time. And, that trade just feels like, I don't know, like you're really betting big on Zion Williamson at that point. And I just don't feel comfortable betting on Zion Williamson, given all the, let's call them transgressions that have occurred with him over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing about that is because that's the first thing that people think about when it comes to Zion Williamson, like not really living up to the hype, not being on the floor, or you have to use that justification saying when healthy, Zion Williamson may be worth that trade. But when you actually dig into it, and here's I like the football analogy, right? I'm gonna use another one. When the Atlanta Falcons, seemingly want to be more so about flash and show than substance. You bring that over to the Atlanta Hawks, with the State Farm Arena, and some may say, I can make a case for that. That's the reason why they went with Trae Young and traded Luka Doncic, because of the flash and because of fitting into the culture and being a young brother coming up in the city of Atlanta and being that guy who can put butts in the seats. But I think with this particular trade, like, I like the concept of it, but I don't like the name. Because here's why. Because I feel like you get John Collins off the books, which is something that needed to happen or needs to happen. And I feel like, you get a guy in Jackson Hayes who's a center, because you're trading away a Yucca Congo who's a promising center, and a guy you probably going to have to pay next year, because he's going to be a restricted free. He can be a restricted free agent next season. So I think there is the concept of it. Okay, you're getting rid of a guy that you need to get rid of, and you're bringing back a guy who's a potential superstar who could more than fit in with Trae Young. But it's just that caveat, right, that comes with that. If he's healthy, if he's in shape. So all of those things, I really feel like, saying just from a standpoint of actually doing the trade and going through with it, I just think that, outside of that, do you feel that he will be a good fit as far as going forward with the Hawks? If let's just say he's going to be healthy, he's going to be in shape, he's going to be ready to roll, change the scenery and everything, he's going to change his ways and go through all of that. Do you think that would be a good fit for the Hawks?
Yeah, I think it would be, because just going back and dusting off my Zion takes from like 3-4 years ago, I'm like, yeah, that'd be a fun combination with him and DeJounte and Trae Young. And the idea of Zion, the high upside, high reward, whatever you want to call it, that if he does work out, like, that could be sort of a dominant presence for this Hawks team. So the idea of Zion, I'm a big fan of, but I don't know. This is the type of move that I would feel much more comfortable about if you're in if Zion just kind of was in a place, or I mean, maybe he is in that place, needs a change of scenery,
right?
But
yeah.
It's not as if like you were getting high level, like you weren't getting what you were expecting from him in New Orleans. And I don't know if Atlanta should be expecting the same, but at the same time, like, it is very intriguing, the potential that you could get with a Zion Williamson on this Hawks team.
Yeah, and then to add to that, like, can we talk a little off the court situation? Like, okay. Atlanta is a very eventful city. Just to say that, and he got into some eventful transgressions that you mentioned earlier with a certain type of woman, like, and all of them look alike. If like they're built the same, and, those basketballs I talked about earlier. But I just don't know if he would be able to handle the city. Yeah. Because I grew up in this city, and I didn't have a 5-year contract, $194 million getting ready to kick in once I stepped into the city, or when I was raised up in this city. So I just feel like, man, like, true enough, man, that would be absolutely amazing if you can guarantee me this dude is going to be healthy, guarantee me this dude is going to stay, stay in shape, he shed some weight, get cut, get what he needs to do, and do what he needs to do. Yeah, that'd be doggone cool. But man, like, if you can't guarantee me that, and you get to the point where you stepping into a situation where it's too much to get into, and given how green he's kind of portrayed himself to be in these past couple of weeks, Aaron, I just don't think it makes sense at this point.
I got you, Jarvis. I mean, as we speak, the Sharks are circling, just getting ready for Zion to come to Atlanta. And what you think I'm talking about with the Sharks, I'll let your imagination run wild. But
yes, absolutely.
There is chum in the waters now, based off of what we've heard recently about Zion Williamson, and Atlanta. I don't know if is a great environment for that fish to be swimming in this sea. So we'll see what happens with that.
Because he'll be a big fish,
very big fish
with a big check. And with that combination coming to town, man, look, like you said, the
blood
Sharks
in the water, my friend.
My brother. All right. Speaking of blood in the water, Bijan Robinson. Now let me go ahead and say this, y'all. Aaron Freeman predicted Bijan Robinson to come to the Atlanta Falcons. He talked about it was back in November of last year, like before the season was even over. He was already talking about Bijan Robinson becoming a Falcon. Now we about to talk about, is he gonna walk on water this year from a production standpoint? Don't go nowhere. We'll talk about that next. But first, I gotta let you know that this episode of ATL Day Ones is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. It is the #1 sportsbook in America. Guess what, y'all? Y'all rocking with us each and every day. Right here on ATL Day Ones. We got my main man, Aaron Freeman, right here. He messing with the FanDuel too, because, you know, he winning money, man. The man is an absolute prophet. So, yeah, guess what? Y'all need to check out Locked On Falcons if y'all want to win some money, and go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn, because they are the #1 source for all your betting needs. And guess what? For all you new customers, they have the no sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. So if you are looking to win some money, you're looking to check out what the over-under will be for Bijan Robinson this year, we're going to talk about that in a second. So you know you need to stick around for that, because we're talking about winning some money. All you got to do is go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. FanDuel, make every moment more. It is the official sportsbook betting partner of Major League Baseball. Got Aaron Freeman back here on ATL Day Ones, filling in for Tenitra Batiste today. I am Jarvis Davis. Don't go anywhere. Tenitra will be back. I'm telling y'all been tripping, man. Y'all calm down, man. She will be back. She is the star of this show. But guess what? We're going to talk about another star right now. Bijan Robinson, obviously drafted in the first round for the Atlanta Falcons. Aaron Freeman picked him to come to the Falcons, and here he is. But one thing I started going through, Aaron, is the fact that, you know, when these rookies come in, obviously they're going to be a certain level of expectation, right? And when you have a running back, you know, drafted, you know, as high as he was, it's kind of hard not to have high expectations. So, you know, for me, I started doing a little digging, right? And started trying to figure out, like, what's a good number or what's a good level of expectation to expect from him. And I came across some very interesting numbers, right? I looked at Alvin Kamara back in 2017, your third-round pick for the New Orleans Saints, right here in the division, right? So it's kind of easy comparison. He was paired up with Mark Ingram. Mark Ingram kind of compares a little very similar to, you know, Tyler Algier, ramrod type of guy. Mark Ingram had about 230 carries that year. That's a good number, I feel, for Tyler Algier. And Alvin Kamara had over 120 carries that year, and he had 81 catches for 800 yards, 5 touchdowns, and he rushed for 8 touchdowns in that season, and went on end up getting the Offensive Rookie of the Year award that year. Are those numbers a little bit too high for you, or is that kind of where you fall, where as far as like, okay, as far as splitting the carries, the touches and everything like that, this is kind of what Bijan Robinson needs, this type of role that he needs, the Alvin Kamara type role?
Well, I think Bijan can fill that Alvin Kamara type role for the Falcons. I mean, the question is going to be, will he get the passing opportunities that Kamara got in New Orleans, given, you know, the Saints' propensity to throw the ball and the Falcons' propensity not to throw the ball.
Absolutely.
But, you know, I think what's interesting is you go back to last year when Cordero Patterson came back from his injury starting in that Chargers game, and through the up to, I think, the bye week, the Falcons had all three of their running backs and CP, Tyler Algier, and Caleb Huntley healthy. And if you look at the split that they had during that stretch of games, you know, Patterson had about 50 carries, Algier had about 47 carries, Huntley had about 18 carries. You could also throw in Marcus Mariota with about 30 carries to make up the bulk of the Falcons' rushing attack during those 5 or so games. And I'm thinking that we'll see something similar with this three-headed backfield, where you'll probably get Bijan. I would probably project him to get the bulk of the carries, but I think the number between him and Algier, similar to what it was with Patterson in Algier during that stretch, will be very close. So like they'll kind of split carries, and then you'll get a couple of carries for CP sprinkled throughout. So like I did some number crunching because a listener for Locked On Falcons asked me sort of how big a role CP would have a couple of weeks back. And I kind of did a rough estimate. So I could see in terms of carries, like Bijan getting like 200, Algier getting like 180, and then maybe Patterson getting like 90, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, the question with those guys when it comes to like how many overall touches and how involved they're going to be in the passing game, it's really going to boil down to who is the guy that the team relies on in pass protection to stand next to Desmond Ridder a lot. And we saw in Patterson's first year, that was Mike Davis, and that's why Mike Davis continued to get a lot of looks late in the season. And last year, that kind of emerged to be Algier a little bit more than CP. Not to mention, I think, given some of the concerns of Falcons at the wide receiver position, we might see CP line up a little bit more out wide. But I thought Bijan was a really good pass protector in college. But at the same time, because I think Algier did such a good job, the Falcons don't necessarily need Bijan to be that every down player. But all this to say, I think probably by the time we get to the year's end, you'll probably see Bijan emerge as like the main guy, similar to how we saw Algier get so much better in the second half of last year. I kind of expect Bijan not to necessarily light the world on fire like week 1 or in September, but by the time we get to November, December, Bijan should be hitting his stride and starting to get more looks than Algier at that point in time. So I think ultimately you'll see Bijan probably get the bulk of the touches and carries, but it'll be for most of the season, it'll probably be a roughly 50-50 split where both guys will probably average about 10 to 15 carries a game. And, hopefully you won't necessarily be able to tell the difference between the two in terms of the Falcons rushing offense. Maybe Bijan is a little bit more capable of breaking some of those longer runs, getting some of those explosive plays. But for the most part, whether it's Bijan, Algier, or Cordero Patterson in the game, the Falcons just going to be grinding teams down into the dust.
Yeah, man. That's the one thing I've always admired about Arthur Smith. The one thing about him, he's not going to overwork his guys. Like he's going to have like a set number, not a hard number, but like a lot of times he has a good idea of how many touches he wants all of his guys get before going into, as far as from a game plan standpoint, going into games. And I think he did a masterful job, like when he brought Cordero Patterson in. And I think you bring up a good point when you're talking about Mike Davis as far as that pass protection, because a lot of times, I know you got these questions too on Locked On Falcons. We got it a lot. When I was at the radio station I used to work for, he was like, why is Mike Davis playing in the game? There's no way, he's horrible. He can block. He can block on third down when Cordero Patterson got stuffed in the first 2 downs. You know what I'm saying? So those are some of the things that people need to pay attention to when you talk about rookie running backs and why those guys get on the field. That's why I thought Tyler Algier did an excellent job in preseason from a pass pro standpoint, and that was one of the reasons why he worked his way onto the field. And then you start seeing the production as the season went along, and he was like, okay, we can leave you here on third down. All right, cool. We're gonna use some more carries. You're gonna earn those things, and I think that just from a usage standpoint with the whole Bijan piece. I'm with you on the fact that I feel like he's going to be worked in. I don't think he starts in game 1, but I do feel like he's going to be a key piece. And I think that the way the Saints used Alvin Kamara, just from a standpoint of like making sure they give him the rock on third downs, coming out of the backfield, and when they're in pass situations, I think Bijan is going to be able to take advantage of those situations because, like you said, you're going to have some guys, on the field, that you got to pay attention to, and Drake London and Kyle Pitts. And I want to ask you something about Kyle Pitts in just a second, but I think that Bijan is in a really good space to where he has the potential to, maybe grab an end of the year award, because of all of the personnel that they have, and obviously with the offensive line having the opportunity to maybe get a little bit better than they were last year. I really feel like there's going to be something there to kind of keep an eye on. I think that Bijan will. I feel like he's gonna. I don't think he's gonna walk on water. Turn water to wine. But I really do feel like this dude's gonna be super productive because he's in good hands with Arthur Smith from a play calling standpoint. Now, Aaron, man, like, me, man, like, I'm a guy that kind of, pay attention to the tea leaves, read up under the lines, pick up something, I'm like, all right, let me look up under the carpet here. There's a little bit something more to it. But I feel like, Kyle Pitts and Taquan Graham got injured in the same game, right? Correct? They got injured in the same game last year, right? Now, and from my understanding, they both tore up their knees, right? They tore a ligament in their knee, right? And I was up at practice. I saw Taquan Graham out at practice. He was actually moving around, running around and everything like that. And man, I'm talking to a couple people up at, Falcons training camp, some couple people cover team and all that stuff, just kind of snooping around. Ain't nobody seen Kyle Pitts, man. Like, nobody. Nobody seen the man. So, with that being said, being that it's June, it's mid-June right now. We're going into the last week or so of June. If we ain't seeing Kyle Pitts, how is he gonna be ready for game one, Aaron?
Yeah, it's an interesting topic because I talked about this the other day on Locked On Falcons, and I basically said until we get to training camp and he's missing practice in training camp, I'm not going to worry about it. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to assume that this is Arthur Smith being his very, very conservative self with injuries. We saw that in the first preseason he had, where he's like, I ain't playing nobody in the preseason.
Right.
I ain't playing nobody. Ain't nobody getting hurt on my one.
A mistake too.
And so I think they're being extra cautious with Kyle Pitts, right? Like we don't really need Kyle Pitts in OTA,
which makes sense. Yeah,
we just kind of need him in August, right? And so that he can start gearing up. So I'm assuming that's what it is. Now, if we get to that first week of practice and training camp and Kyle Pitts is still limited, I'm like, okay, wait, what's going on here? What's this all about? But until then, I'm not gonna panic too much about Kyle Pitts, hanging out. As long as it's not getting the Zion Williamson things, off the field, he'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't want to have Zion Williamson type conversations about Kyle Pitts. Like, Lord knows, I'm sure you guys have been listening. If you heard the conversation about Zion Williamson, we do not want to be talking like that about Kyle Pitts come fall. Yeah, not interested in that at all. What I am interested in is you everydayers. We appreciate you guys for rocking with ATL Day Ones. We have a nice little, rotation of guests. When Tenitra is out, Aaron Freeman is filling in today. And we appreciate you guys for being everydayers for Locked On Falcons as well, because we know if you rocking with us, you got to be rocking with Locked On Falcons. Come on now. What are you doing with your lives if you're not? So, yeah, we appreciate you guys for that. And if you're everydayer, go ahead and drop it in the comment box. Really appreciate that in advance. But, Aaron, this is For the Culture. It is the intersection between sports, entertainment, the culture, and sometimes whatever the hell we want to talk about, because that's just how we get down on the show. Today is no different. Like, Aaron, I don't know if you know, but I'm from the Atlanta metro area, and my boy, Killer Mike, he dropped the album on Friday, and when I say he has the city buzzing, man, like this was an album that just kind of brought back memories for me. It kind of reminds me of old Atlanta. Not like ATLANTA. I'm talking about ALANNA. Like that's what it reminds me of, Atlanta. I brought this up because I want to kind of get your thoughts. First of all, have you heard the album?
I have not heard the album. I did hear the song with Andre 3000 because I gotta follow Andre 3000. Like, oh, he's spitting verses. Oh, okay, let's go see what he put out there. So I did check that out. I'll have to check out the rest of the album. I haven't been really fooling with Killer Mike the last couple of years just because he's been saying some wild stuff outside of the studio.
Yeah.
So he's been put on that list of mine of people where I'm just like, I'm not gonna rush out to check out his album unless someone tells me it's good, but I'll check it out. If you're you're putting that out there that it's worth checking out, I'll check it out. So I've heard the Andre song. I like that song.
Yes, it is an excellent song. Yes.
Andre 3000, Future, Killer Mike. You can't really go wrong with that combination.
Not bad
on the song, but I'll check out the rest of it as this week unfolds and see what's up.
Yeah, man. I like I said, I got a chance to meet Killer Mike back in the day, man. Like long back in the day. Like I'm talking about like passing out CDs in Buckhead, like the type of situation. So yeah, he's a guy that I feel like from a growth standpoint, like I feel like this album he kind of really just opened up about things he's been going through, and it was just a really cool picture of like who he is. And I think that naming the album Michael was kind of spot on. I thought you brought up something that was kind of interesting. I want to ask you about. Like you talking about going out and go get an album. Like, how do you purchase your albums today? Because I know for me, like, I get frustrated because, like, I got to go to get a subscription to go to Spotify. I pay this for have access to all of this. I'm like, no, I don't want to have access to all that. I just want to buy one album. So how do you go out and go get an album? Do you physically go out and go get it? Or do you kind of like sit at home and like, just download it or just listen to it on one of these 1,000 million streaming apps that are out here as far as to be able to listen to music?
I'm a streamer. I'm a Spotify guy.
Okay.
I don't even know where to go to purchase an individual album. I don't think I've done that in like 15 years. So I don't even know. Like once Sam Goody closed down in like 2005, like I had nowhere else to go.
You had to figure something out, right?
So I guess I got to get on the streaming bandwagon at this point in time.
Oh man, I am so kicking and screaming, man. I feel like an old man when I'm talking about this particular subject, but yeah, I'm kicking and screaming, talking about let me go get $10.99 or whatever it costs for Spotify. I'm just like, I don't want another subscription. I'm sorry. Like with the Plus apps and all this stuff, man, I'm cool. I'm cool on that right now. But yeah, man, one last thing before we get out here. Now, I'm going to take you back, back in time. 2011, Kroy Biermann and Kim Zolciak, they got married. Mm-hmm. And, when I don't know about you, but when I heard that he was marrying Kim Zolciak, now she was big time on I guess big time, Real Housewives of Atlanta, right? Mm-hmm. Only reason I know about it because my wife is a big fan. She's been watching it for years, and I had no choice to watch it, so here I am. Did you see this coming? I know for me, I was just like, there's no way that this lasts because when you have a guy that had 23 and a half sacks in 8 years with one team, more than likely he ain't gonna get another contract. And once that money run out, she's out. And it seems like that might be the case right now because she just filed for divorce.
Yeah, I heard there's some issues with the IRS too. They owe some money or whatever. So I don't know.
7 figures.
Yeah, I'm sure it's related.
Yes,
yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
Possibly.
So, I mean, when you asked the question, did I see this lasting? No, I do remember when this was a big topic of the day,
right?
Like a decade ago, basically.
Imagine that.
When Kroy was playing and everybody was hating on Kroy and it was like, oh, it's Kim's fault that he's playing bad. You remember that, right? Yes. So like, I haven't spent too much time thinking about it the last couple of years since Kroy, stopped playing for the Falcons.
Right.
But the fact that this is, I don't know. I don't know. It's like, yeah, I mean, if you had asked me in 2013, I'd be like, yeah, this is not going to last. And now that we're, here in 2023, I'm like, oh, that's a shame. Like, it seemed like it was going fine,
That's all so genuine, Aaron.
I'm just saying, like, oh man, y'all had it going for 10 years. You were right. Bucking my expectations. So, now it's the IRS and apparently bad blood and it's it's stuff straight out of a reality TV show type of thing. So I guess
that, man.
It all came full circle on that one.
Yeah, and they actually had a reality show like Kroy Mayonnaise Biermann had a reality show. Yeah, so yeah, I think it was safe to say that Kim Zolciak was the star of that show as well, and unfortunately, it has come to an end. And unfortunately, this show has come to an end as well, man. Time flies when you're having fun. Well, my main man, Aaron, we appreciate you for joining us today. And we also appreciate you guys for rocking with ATL Day Ones and making it your first listen of the day. Remember, we're free and available wherever you download your podcast. And wherever you download your podcast, make sure that you leave us a 5-star review. And our everydayers, yes, everydayers for ATL Day Ones and Locked On Falcons. I know y'all rocking with both of us. Come on now, why wouldn't y'all? Y'all ain't got nothing else to do. How about that? Drop a comment in the comment box below. Right there. Drop it right there in the comment box, man. We appreciate you guys. We give you a shout out on the show. And last but not least, before we get out of here, if we're going to do anything else in life, make sure that you both share love, show love, and most importantly, spread love. Stop living up under the same roof and not liking each other and not speaking to each other with lawyers having to be involved.